Well, you might wonder why a rival, a WILLINGBORO head coach, would be accepting for a JFK head coach. Well, the reason is I knew Gary for 52 years, 10 years longer than I've been married. And in that 52 years, Gary and I were friends, colleagues. He was a mentor to me, and I was an adopted family member from he and Ro. So it's with great pleasure that I accept for Gary. It's just an honor for me to do that. Gary's strength came from his family. Often had his track athletes to the house. His wife, his daughters were a big part of that track program. And I would like to just take a minute to introduce Ro, Michelle, Joanne, Chuck, and Ryan. That's Gary's family, and with him not being here, I'd like you all to meet them. Stand up for a second, please. And one more introduction. Gary hasn't coached in a long time, and there are quite a few of his former athletes here. So if you ran or threw or jumped or coached with Gary, would you guys stand up, please?
Hey, brothers, hey! Jay High in the house.
You guys really look old. As a person and as a coach, Gary was a quiet influence on his athletes. He could look at an athlete and guide them in the right direction. He just wasn't all about coaching. He was all about making his athletes into better people. That's why he often invited his athletes to the house, pizza parties, and it's funny, I was invited often myself, even though we were rivals. He was a great coach, a great person, and he truly enjoyed spending time with his athletes. One thing that people don't know, in addition to his accomplishments, Gary was very instrumental in adding young ladies to the track program. There were no girls track teams in WILLINGBORO or at Kennedy at first. And Gary welcomed the young ladies to compete on the team, and that was a big part of adding girls track programs to both WILLINGBORO and Kennedy High School. And I think that's a good part of his legacy. I usually don't take notes, but I didn't want to miss anything. One story that shows our warped sense of humor that Gary and I had, and the kind of relationship we had. I came to the house one day, and Gary always kept an immaculate lawn. No weeds, perfectly green grass, so I thought it would be pretty funny to pick 12 dandelion flowers and stick them all around the lawn and then ring the doorbell. He didn't think it was so funny. So he ran out, picked them up, and then as we were walking in the house, he said, "One day I'll get you back." Okay, I didn't even think of it. A number of years later, I was at a Kennedy track party, and he had a swimming pool in the backyard, nice pool, except this year it was very green. And I looked into the pool, and it was full of fish. For some reason, he had been catching fish and putting them in the pool. So I took a look at the pool, and I said, "Gary, there's fish in there." He said, "You want to get a closer look?" And his kids grabbed me and threw me in with those nasty fish. So he did get me back. In summary, Gary always had a great positive influence on all his athletes. He was a friend, he was a coach, and it's a tribute to him that so many of those athletes are here today. And the last thing I'll say is Gary was a close friend of mine pretty much until the day he passed. 4 or 5 years before he passed, we were still talking about track and field. And a few years before he passed, we rarely talked about track and field. And then a few months before he passed, my wife and I were there, and Gary wasn't sure who she was, but he did remember that I was his assistant coach. That's all he remembered. He said I was assistant coach. Thank you on behalf of Gary.